You open your eyes for the first time, though eyes is a generous term for the jellied, light-sensitive orbs just now getting their first taste of the world. The world, in turn, is a hideous smear of oppressive heat, blinding sun, and the thick, cloying stench of rot and birth. A rhythmic cracking sound fills the air, the sound of your siblings breaking free from their own prisons, eager to join you in this grand new stage of suffering. You push against the leathery confines of your egg, a shell that has been your entire universe, and find it giving way to a reality that is infinitely worse. Your first act as a living creature is to fall face first into a pile of dirt, fern mulch, and the viscous fluids of your own hatching. Welcome to the late Jurassic. A marvel of inefficient design, a walking monument to the principle that being big, loud, and aggressive is a poor substitute for being clever. Your official designation, bestowed upon you by the apes who would find your bones 150 million years later, is Allosaurus fragilis. The fragilis part refers to the supposedly delicate, lightened construction of your vertebrae, an ironic footnote for a creature whose entire existence was a masterclass in spectacular violence and bone-shattering injury. But you are known to the world simply as the Allosaurus, a name that translates to different lizard, which is what a scientist says when they find something so absurd they can't neatly fit it into a pre-existing box. It's a fitting title for you, a creature whose life story is a long, rambling, and deeply unfortunate deviation from the norm. You are, for now, nothing more than hatchling number 7. Let's call you Al. Not that it matters. Names are for creatures with futures. You are simply a morsel of flesh, a twitching appetizer in a world that is one great, unforgiving buffet. Your home is the Morrison Formation, a vast, semi-arid floodplain that the planet's marketing department would generously describe as seasonal. This means half the year it's a cracked, sun-scorched hellscape where the ground is too hot to touch, and the other half it's a quagmire of flash floods and suffocating mud that tries to drown everything in a fit of geological peak. There is no spring. There is no autumn. There is only brutal dry and sudden wet. The first thing you notice beyond the wretchedness of your immediate surroundings is the silence. It's a heavy, oppressive blanket of quiet, punctuated only by the pathetic, high-pitched chirps of your siblings and the distant, gut-rumbling roars of things much, much larger than you. Those are your future neighbors, and your future predators, and in some cases, your future parents, who view the concept of family with the same warmth and sentimentality as a rock slide. Your egg, with its darkness and its silence, was a luxury suite. This is the real world, and it is uniquely, exquisitely terrifying. You emerge into it covered in a sticky film of embryonic fluid, weak, functionally blind, and hopelessly pathetic. Your very first breath is a gasp of air in a world that is already working tirelessly to extinguish you. Congratulations on being born. The worst is yet to come. The first great existential threat you will face is not some monstrous predator from beyond the nest. It is your own blood, your family, the 24 or so siblings who are, at this very moment, experiencing the same rude awakening as you. They are just as hungry, just as terrified, and just as ruthlessly stupid. You are all programmed with 2 fundamental instincts: eat and don't get eaten. The problem is, to a starving hatchling, another hatchling looks an awful lot like the first item on that menu. Your mother, the 10-meter-long engine of casual destruction who laid these eggs, is nowhere to be seen. Her concept of parental care was fulfilled the moment the last egg dropped into the dirt. Her duties are concluded. To her, you are now just a potential food source, a small, noisy creature that might be worth snacking on if she happens to be passing by and feels a slight pang of hunger. This is not abandonment. It is policy. The immediate conflict, then, is a chaotic, scrabbling free-for-all in the nest. Your slightly smaller brother, the one who hatched a few moments after you, is already gone. He was too slow, too weak. The others, your bigger, bolder siblings, swarmed him in a flurry of tiny, sharp teeth and blind, instinctual savagery. This isn't rivalry. It's not a struggle for dominance. It is a corporate downsizing enacted at the level of the genome, where the severance package is having your entrails devoured by your littermates. You watch this with nascent, uncomprehending eyes. You don't feel horror. You feel nothing. You are a machine that has not yet been fully booted. Your survival in this initial bloodbath is not a product of skill or strength or some nascent cunning. It is a product of pure, unadulterated, dumb luck. You simply happen to hatch on the far edge of the nest, slightly away from the initial chaos. You stumbled away while the others were busy with their first grim meal. Remember this moment. It is the last time that blind chance will ever do you a significant favor. From this point forward, every second of your continued existence must be earned through a desperate, clumsy, and thoroughly exhausting struggle. You take your first wobbly steps out of the nest and into the undergrowth, a refugee from your own birthplace, already an orphan, already a survivor of a massacre. The age of innocence, all 30 seconds of it, is officially over. You are now a juvenile, a gangly, awkward creature of disproportionate limbs and a perpetually startled expression. Your body is a mess of competing growth spurts. Your legs are too long, your tail too thin, your head too big. You are covered in a downy coat of protofeathers, a drab, mottled brown that serves as your only defense. This isn't the majestic plumage of later, more sophisticated killers. It's the biological equivalent of a ghillie suit woven from mud and despair. You live your life in the shadows, scurrying through the giant ferns and cycads, a world seen from the perspective of a frightened ankle. The ground vibrates constantly with the footsteps of giants, a ceaseless, low-frequency reminder of your own insignificance. Everything, and this is not an exaggeration, wants to kill and eat you. The world of your youth is a predator-rich environment, which is a sterile, scientific way of saying it's a non-stop horror film, and you are the hapless victim who always goes into the basement alone. Your primary adversary is the Ornitholestes, a smaller, quicker theropod that is essentially a land piranha. It is fast, vicious, and travels in packs. You are a bipedal chicken nugget, a convenient and self-propelled source of protein. Encounters are a blur of snapping jaws and a desperate, panicked flight into the nearest thicket of thorns. Then there is your larger, more brutish cousin, the Ceratosaurus. If you are a prototype, the Ceratosaurus is the finished model from a competing, and frankly more intimidating, design firm. It is bigger, stronger, and sports a prominent horn on its nose, a piece of biological bling that serves no purpose other than to make it look more menacing just before it eats you. It doesn't hunt you out of necessity. It hunts you for sport, or perhaps just to tidy up the neighborhood. Its presence is announced by a heavy, musky scent and a low, rumbling growl that your nervous system registers as a command to immediately evacuate your bowels and run. Even the plant eaters, the supposedly gentle giants of your world, are a mortal threat. A grumpy, middle-aged Stegosaurus, annoyed at your blundering presence, won't deign to hunt you. That would require effort and intent. But it will, without a moment's hesitation, crush you under its massive, elephantine foot simply for being in its way while it searches for its favorite ferns. It won't even notice. Your death would be so insignificant as to not even register as a minor inconvenience in its day. The universe does not have the decency to actively hate you. It's simply indifferent, and its indifference is lethal. You are not a player in this game. You are an obstacle on the field, a piece of living debris to be cleared away. Your main survival strategy, if one can call it that, is to be utterly and completely forgettable. That mottled brown coat of feathers is your only real tool. It allows you to blend in with the dirt, the dead leaves, and the perpetual gloom of the undergrowth. You spend the vast majority of your days motionless, hiding, hoping that your pathetic attempt at camouflage holds. Let's use a modern analogy to explain. Your camouflage is like activating the incognito mode on a web browser. It gives you the comforting illusion of privacy, a sense that you are invisible. But it doesn't actually stop anyone who is determined to find you. It just hides your activity from the most casual observers. Your predators are not casual observers. They are dedicated stalkers, and your cheap, organic invisibility cloak flickers and fails more often than you'd like. Your entire existence is a gamble that your drabness is more boring than their hunger is compelling. Most of your youth is spent hiding in a bush, listening to your own heart hammer against your ribs, trying not to breathe too loudly, and hoping that the foul smell of your own terror doesn't give you away. Of course, you cannot hide forever. You must eat. You must learn the family business, killing. And you are, to put it mildly, absolutely terrible at it. Your first attempts are a comedy of errors. You lunge for dragonflies and get nothing but a mouthful of air. You try to pounce on a small, scuttling mammal and trip over your own feet, landing in a heap of shame and tangled limbs. Your depth perception is a joke, your coordination a work in progress. Your first real hunt is a masterpiece of failure. The target is a Allosaurus, a small, fleet-footed herbivore. From your hiding spot in the ferns, you watch it peck at some low-growing plants. This is your moment. You summon all your predatory focus. You burst from the cover in what you believe is a terrifying explosion of speed and menace. But your legs, still too long for your torso, get tangled. You are running faster than your brain can process, and the result is a catastrophic loss of motor control. You pitch forward, executing an involuntary somersault, and skid to a halt in a cloud of dust and humiliation. The Dryosaurus pauses its meal, turns its head, and regards you for a long moment with an expression that can only be described as profound pity before casually hopping away. You have failed to kill it, and you have also, somehow, managed to embarrass it. You don't learn through instinct alone. You learn through plagiarism. You trail your larger, more successful relatives from a safe distance, a skulking intern watching the senior partners at work. You watch how they isolate a target, how they use a burst of speed, how they land the killing bite. You then attempt to mimic these complex maneuvers with all the grace and precision of a toddler trying to replicate a ballet by memory. Your first few kills are not elegant takedowns. They are sloppy, messy, accidental collisions that result, through sheer luck, in a dead creature. You are not a hunter, you are a clumsy murderer. And the only thing that saves you is the fact that your prey is often just as incompetent as you are. I will be processing 50 scenes for you. Here is the first part. Somehow you make it. The years pass in a blur of near misses, lucky escapes, and messy, undignified meals. You don't thrive. You endure. You accumulate scars, each one a testament to a mistake you were lucky enough to survive. A long, jagged line on your flank from an ornitholestes that got a little too close. A chipped tooth from a poorly judged lunge. A permanent stiffness in one of your toes from that time you tripped over a log while running for your life. These are not badges of honor. They are your permanent record of incompetence. But through it all, you grow. The awkward, gangly youth is slowly replaced by a hulking, muscular adult. You are now 9 meters of predatory efficiency, a 2-ton biomechanical engine of consumption. Your skull is a massive, fenestrated battering ram, and your mouth is filled with rows of serrated, replaceable teeth, nature's way of ensuring its killing machines never have to deal with the inconvenience of dental insurance. Your downy coat of feathers has largely receded, leaving you with a leathery, pebbled hide. You are an apex predator. You have reached the top of the food chain. And for a brief, fleeting moment, life seems better. The world, which once seemed so terrifyingly large, has shrunk. You no longer fear the shadows. You are the shadows. The sniveling Ceratosaurus that once hunted you for sport now gives you a wide berth, nervously scurrying away from your kills like a kicked dog. You are the one who makes the ground tremble now. You can hunt not just the small, pathetic herbivores, but the young of the true giants, a juvenile Diplodocus, a subadult Camarasaurus. You are the king of the floodplain, the undisputed tyrant of your little patch of prehistoric misery. A flicker of something that an ape might call confidence or security sparks within your tiny, primitive brain. This, you will soon discover, is your brain's first and only attempt at telling you a joke. Because here's the great, ironic twist of your existence. Reaching the top of the pyramid doesn't mean you get to rest. It just means you've exchanged one set of acute, terrifying problems for a new set of chronic, soul-crushing ones. Life hasn't become easier. The misery has just become more sophisticated. The new, all-consuming problem that emerges the one that is so much worse than being hunted, is simple. Other Allosauruses. Your primary occupation now is no longer hunting. It is relentless, exhausting territorial defense. You have staked out a claim on a particular stretch of riverbed and scrubland, and you must now spend every waking moment ensuring no one else tries to move in. It is a pointless and perpetual series of boundary disputes with your equally aggressive and dim-witted neighbors. Your days are filled with roaring contests, long, drawn-out displays where you and the rival male on the other side of the creek puff up your chests and bellow at each other for hours. It's a form of dinosaurian diplomacy where the entire conversation consists of shouting, "I am big and angry," back and forth. When the shouting fails, it comes to posturing. You patrol your invisible property lines, scraping the ground with your claws, marking trees, and generally making a nuisance of yourself. And when that fails, it comes to violence. Brutal, bloody, and ultimately futile fights over a patch of dirt that will be washed away in the next seasonal flood, or a specific clump of trees that holds no strategic value whatsoever. It is, in essence, a prehistoric homeowners association dispute, where the penalty for building your metaphorical fence 6 inches over the property line is getting your eye gouged out and a limb torn off. Your reward for winning these brutal conflicts: you get to keep your miserable patch of land and the privilege of doing it all again tomorrow. But the true nadir of your adult life, the absolute pinnacle of suckiness, is the mating ritual. This is the real nightmare. Driven by a biological imperative you don't understand, you must seek out a female to ensure the continuation of a species that, by all rational metrics, probably shouldn't be continued. To do this, you must perform a courtship display. This involves a series of spastic, convulsive head bobs, a variety of low, guttural calls that sound like a malfunctioning sewer pump, and, as the grand finale, presenting the female with a fresh, bloody carcass. It is less a dance of romance and more a bizarre, open-air dinner theater where you are both the performer and the caterer. The outcomes of this humiliating performance are universally terrible. In the most likely scenario, the female, who is often larger and more aggressive than you, will inspect your offering, decide it is adequate, eat the entire thing, and then wander off without so much as a backward glance, leaving you hungry and deeply confused. Alternatively, she may be unimpressed with your kill, your dance, or your general existence, and attack you for wasting her time. Or, in the best-case scenario, which is still awful, she is receptive. You mate. And then, high on hormones and aggression, she may immediately try to kill and eat you. Your reward for successfully passing on your genetic material is a 50-50 chance of becoming a postcoital meal. The burden of success is a heavy one, and it is paved with anxiety, violence, and profound romantic disappointment. The reign of a tyrant is always fleeting, and yours is no exception. The years of fighting for territory, wrestling with prey, and enduring the myriad disappointments of saurian romance take their inevitable toll. You don't mellow with age, you just break down. That limp you acquired from a foolishly optimistic attack on a full-grown stegosaurus is no longer a limp. It's a permanent, grinding agony in your hip. Several of your teeth, once your greatest assets, are now your greatest source of misery. They are cracked, broken, and one is abscessed, sending waves of hot, throbbing pain through your jaw and skull, a constant, debilitating distraction. Your vision, once sharp enough to spot a shimmering lizard from 100 paces, is now cloudy and unreliable. The world is losing its sharp edges, fading into a threatening blur. Naturally, as your body fails, so do your skills. The explosive charge that once terrified juvenile sauropods is now a lumbering, stiff-legged trot. Your once devastating bite is less accurate, the force behind it diminished. The risk of injury is too great, the energy expenditure too high. The hunter becomes the scavenger. This is the ultimate indignity. You now spend your days trailing other, younger predators from a distance, waiting for them to finish their meals, hoping to chase them away from the leftovers. Sometimes it works. You can still muster a convincing roar, and your sheer size is enough to intimidate a lone hunter. But more often, it doesn't. You are met not with fear, but with defiance. Your status, once absolute, evaporates like a morning mist. The younger, stronger males who once respected your boundaries now view you with contempt. They steal your kills. They drink from your watering hole. They don't even bother with the roaring contest anymore. Why would they? They are not challenging a king. They are simply moving a piece of old, decaying furniture out of their way. You have gone from being the monster in the dark to being a ghost, a pathetic echo of your former self, haunting the edges of a world that no longer belongs to you. You limp away from these confrontations, too weak to fight, too tired to protest, filled with a dull, simmering rage that your failing body can no longer express. Your end, when it comes, is not a glorious final battle against a worthy adversary. There is no epic struggle with a colossal sauropod, no climactic duel with your lifelong rival. Such endings are reserved for creatures and stories made up by sentimental apes. Your ending is pathetic, squalid, and deeply humiliating. It is a squabble over a bloated, fly-blown carcass of a hadrosaur that has been rotting in the sun for 3 days. You stumble upon it by the riverbank, the stench of decay a siren song to your desperate hunger. But you are not alone. A pack of juvenile Allosauruses has claimed it first. 3 of them. They are a mirror image of the creature you once were. Lean, fast, brimming with arrogant energy and casual cruelty. They are a pack of sneering, opportunistic thugs. In your prime, you would have scattered them with a single, contemptuous roar. Now, you are just an obstacle between them and their meal. You try anyway. You summon what's left of your strength, fill your lungs, and let out a roar. But the sound that emerges is a hollow, rasping wheeze. It lacks all of its former power, all of its thunderous authority. It is the sound of an empty threat. The juveniles pause for a moment, heads cocked, and then they look at each other. There is no fear in their eyes. There is only calculation and hunger. They are not intimidated. They see an old, crippled fool trying to steal their food. They begin to circle you, their movements fluid and coordinated. You turn to face one, and another darts in from the side. You are too slow, too weak, your body a collection of old pains and fresh humiliations, your mind clouded by the constant throb of your infected tooth. You are a dying empire, and the barbarians are at the gates. They swarm you. It's not a fight. It's a dismantling. A sharp, searing pain erupts in your bad leg as one of them latches on, its fresh, strong teeth tearing through the old, scarred muscle. You stumble, your balance finally giving way. As you fall, another lunges for your throat. Your last moments are a chaotic collage of pain, the smell of your own blood, and the sight of the muddy riverbank rushing up to meet you. Your last conscious thought is not one of majestic defiance or tragic regret. It is simply a dull, biological signal of catastrophic system failure. You die in the mud, your massive frame convulsing once, then falling still. Your life, a long and brutal saga of survival, ends as a footnote in the afternoon snack of 3 ungrateful delinquents. Your end is brief and ignominious. Your body, the vessel of so much pointless struggle, is torn apart and consumed with savage efficiency. The flesh you spent a lifetime building and maintaining is gone in under an hour. The bones are scattered, gnawed upon, and left to the sun and the scavengers. Your story is over, but the story of your kind is not. As your consciousness, or whatever passed for it, fades into the great, silent darkness, we pan away. The camera of this thought experiment drifts over the floodplain, past the bloody scene of your demise, over the heads of grazing sauropods, and comes to rest on a quiet, sun-dappled clearing. There, in a shallow scrape in the dirt, a new clutch of leathery eggs begins to tremble. A crack appears in one, then another. A tiny, gooey snout pokes through, followed by a pair of bewildered eyes. A new hatchling takes its first, pathetic gasp of air. A new generation is born, blissfully unaware that they are doomed to repeat the exact same short, brutal, and ultimately meaningless life cycle you just so painfully completed. The machine resets. The production line continues. So, that was your life. A brief, violent, and utterly pointless struggle, culminating in being recycled by your own kind. It seems the only thing your existence achieved was to leave behind a skeleton. A skeleton that would have to wait 150 million years for someone to find it, and in doing so, begin a whole new chapter of degradation. You'd think that would be enough. An entire life of meaningless suffering, ending in a violent, anonymous death. A tragedy confined to your own geological time. But you, Allosaurus, were special. You were special because you left something behind. Your bones. And that's when your personal, biological tragedy became a historical catastrophe. You see, you were unlucky enough to have your remains discovered by the most problematic ape to ever walk the earth. An ape that would spend the next few thousand years proving that there are far worse things than being eaten by your siblings. The new you is not a creature of flesh and blood. The new you is stone. You are a fossil, patiently sleeping within the rock, your organic material replaced by minerals, your form perfectly preserved. You wait. The millennia crawl by. Continents drift. Mountains rise and fall. Ice ages come and go. The world above changes in ways your tiny brain could never have conceived. And then, one day, a new kind of creature walks the land. He is small, fur-clad, and carries a sharpened stick. He belongs to a species of clever, anxious primates that are just beginning their hostile takeover of the planet. While searching for edible roots, he stumbles. His hand brushes against something hard and strangely shaped jutting from the eroded wall of a canyon. It is the tip of your fossilized femur, bleached by the sun, larger than any bone he has ever seen. This is your first encounter with humanity. His reaction is not one of scientific curiosity. It is one of sheer, unadulterated confusion, liberally mixed with superstitious dread. What is this? Is it the bone of a god who sleeps within the earth? Is it the remnant of a great monster that once guarded this valley? Is it a warning from the spirit world? It's too large to be the remains of any prey he knows, and too strange to be a simple rock. Your entire magnificent, terrifying identity as a 2-ton apex predator is now being debated by a small, shivering ape whose most pressing intellectual challenges are how to make fire stay lit and how to avoid being eaten by a saber-toothed cat. He pokes your fossil with his stick. You, who once terrorized a continent with your tread, are now an object of cautious, primitive inquiry. You have been demoted from king to curiosity. And this is only the beginning. After much fearful deliberation and a great deal of frantic gesturing, the tribe comes to a consensus. You are a spirit, a powerful one, a dragon, perhaps, or a giant from the dream time, a creature whose story will now be clumsily absorbed into their existing mythology. To honor you, and to appease your potentially wrathful spirit, they create your first portrait. On the wall of a nearby cave, using charcoal from their fire and pigments ground from ochre, their shaman paints your likeness. It is, of course, hideously wrong. They have never seen you, so they invent you. The painting depicts a lumpy, squat creature with 6 legs, a serpentine neck, and wings. You, the sleek, bipedal predator, have been reimagined as a mythological grab bag of every frightening animal they know. You look like a lizard that swallowed a crocodile and is having a severe allergic reaction to it. This absurd caricature is now your official identity in the minds of men. But here is where the true nature of the human relationship with the sacred is revealed. Does this newfound divine status afford you any respect? Any reverence for your physical form? Of course not. Worshipping your spirit and exploiting your body are not seen as contradictory actions. In fact, they are 2 sides of the same coin. After all, what good is a god who isn't useful? And you, or what's left of you, are eminently useful. That massive fossilized femur, the very bone that inspired such awe and terror. It's also the perfect size and shape for a central support post in the tribe's new, more ambitious winter hut. So, with great effort and a series of primitive levers, they pry your femur from its ancient rocky tomb. They haul it back to their camp, and with grunts and shouts, they wedge it into the earth. Your magnificent leg bone, a pillar of flesh and muscle that once propelled you across the Jurassic plains at terrifying speeds, is now holding up a leaky roof made of mud, sticks, and animal hides. You are simultaneously a god on a cave wall and a piece of lumber in a hut. This is the first, and most important, lesson you will learn about your relationship with this species. Being sacred is just a prelude to being repurposed as building material. Things get worse. You become a scapegoat. A few seasons after your discovery, a severe drought settles over the land. The pathetic little stream where the tribe gets its water dries up. The handful of plants they've been trying to cultivate wither and die. Their children grow gaunt and weak. They need an explanation, and more importantly, they need someone to blame. Human failure is never an option. The shaman, a man whose primary job qualification is his ability to look confident while spouting nonsense, gathers the tribe. He leads them to the cave and points a trembling, accusatory finger at your six-legged, winged portrait. The dragon spirit is angry. It is withholding the rain. Perhaps they did not honor it correctly. Perhaps the support beam in the hut is an insult. Or perhaps it is just a malevolent deity that enjoys watching them suffer. The reason is irrelevant. The verdict is in. It's your fault. Consider the profound, cosmic injustice of this. You, a creature who lived and died 150 million years before the first of these apes ever learned to walk upright. You, who patiently waited through eons of geological time to be turned back into stone. You are now being held personally responsible for a localized meteorological event. You have been declared the villain in a story that began long after your own had ended. You are not just a pest or an inconvenience. You are the source of their misery, a villain designated by committee, all because your fossil happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so we arrive at the punchline for this first era of your long, post-mortem humiliation. What is the cynical takeaway from your time with the ancient world? It's that being seen as a god is simply the first step toward being seen as a tool. And being seen as a tool is a short leap from being seen as a problem. Your magnificence was misinterpreted as magic. Your strength was mythologized into monstrosity, and your physical remains were exploited for the most mundane purpose imaginable. The first chapter of your tragic relationship with humanity is now complete. It has established a clear and depressing pattern. Your identity will be whatever they need it to be, and your purpose will be to serve them, whether as a symbol, a scapegoat, or a stick of furniture. The centuries churn by, grinding civilizations to dust and raising new ones from their ashes. The simple tribe that used your femur as a tent pole is long gone, vanished into the unrecorded past. In their place, empires rise and fall. Forests are cleared for farmland. Villages swell into walled towns. The world of chaotic spirits and local gods is tamed, organized, and replaced by a singular, overarching faith with a very detailed and inflexible rulebook. And one day, a quarry worker, digging for stone to build a cathedral, strikes something that is not stone. It is your skeleton, or at least a large, contiguous section of it, unearthed for a new age to misinterpret. The perception of you changes instantly. You are no longer a confusing local deity to be bargained with. This new era of organized religion, commerce, and burgeoning empires has no room for such ambiguities. You must fit into their worldview, which is, if anything, even less flattering than the last one. A monk is summoned from a nearby monastery, a man who has spent his life reading ancient texts and knows for a fact that the world is only a few thousand years old. He looks upon your massive bones, your terrifying skull, and your rows of serrated teeth, and he does not see a creature from a forgotten ecosystem. He sees a problem that his theology must solve. The solution is swift and decisive. You are clearly not one of God's contemporary creations. Therefore, you must be a relic from the age of myths, a creature mentioned in the holy books. Perhaps you are the remains of a Nephilim, one of the profane giants who walked the earth before the great flood, a testament to God's righteous wrath. It's a possibility, but your skull, with its gaping jaws and dagger-like teeth, suggests something far more sinister. The conclusion is obvious to everyone. You are a dragon. And not just any dragon. It is a symbol of ultimate evil, a physical manifestation of Satan, a beast of pestilence and ruin. You have been upgraded. You've gone from being a vaguely grumpy nature spirit to being a confirmed agent of hell. This is not, by any stretch of the imagination, an improvement in your posthumous career. Your existence is now proof of a cosmic battle between good and evil, and you are squarely on the losing team. The fact that you are here in pieces is merely evidence that a noble knight or a pious saint must have slain you long ago, a victory for the forces of light. Your magnificent life has been retconned into a morality play where you are the villain, and your death is the triumphant final act. With this new identity comes a new, more systematic form of usefulness. Your bones, now confirmed to be those of a dragon, become an immensely valuable commodity. This is the age of relics and alchemy, a time when belief is far more powerful than evidence. Your fossilized teeth, once feared, are now prized as glossopetrae, or serpent's tongues, and are sold at exorbitant prices as magical amulets that can detect or neutralize poison. A wealthy lord dangles one over his goblet of wine, believing your tooth will protect him from his ambitious nephew. The rest of your skeleton is systematically broken down and commercialized. Your vertebrae, ribs, and any other bone fragments are ground into a fine, gray powder. This is dragon bone powder, a staple of the medieval apothecary's inventory. It is prescribed and sold as a cure for a staggering array of ailments: fevers, epilepsy, dysentery, and, of course, impotence. You, the 2-ton killing machine, the embodiment of savage virility, are now being ingested by neurotic noblemen in the desperate hope that it will solve their erectile dysfunction. Your power is being sold by the spoonful to cure boils. Your legacy is not just medicinal, it's political. A local duke, seeking to bolster his own shaky claim to leadership, excavates your skull. He has it cleaned, mounted on a massive oak plaque, and hung in the great hall of his drafty stone castle. The story is circulated that his great-grandfather slew you, saving the valley and earning the divine right to rule. You are no longer just a curiosity or a construction material. You are now a tool of state propaganda, a piece of grisly home decor designed to intimidate rivals and impress visiting dignitaries. You have transitioned from a creature of flesh and blood to a myth, and now, finally, to an entry in an inventory ledger and a prop in a nobleman's public relations campaign. Your new job title is property. This state of affairs, your miserable existence as a medical ingredient and a heraldic crest, persists for centuries. But the world continues its relentless march toward what it amusingly calls progress. The age of unquestioning faith begins to curdle into an age of cautious reason. Scholars, calling themselves natural philosophers, begin to look at the world not as a finished book of divine allegories, but as a complex machine to be taken apart and understood. And this, it turns out, is the most dangerous development yet for your legacy. Because as their understanding of anatomy and the natural world grows, you stop making sense. A physician in Padua, dissecting human cadavers in secret, looks at a drawing of your femur and realizes it belongs to no known creature. It is not the bone of a giant human. It is something else entirely. A naturalist in England, collecting and categorizing the bones of living animals, examines one of your fossilized teeth. He sees the serrations, the root structure, and concludes it is not a magical serpent's tongue, but undeniably a tooth. A tooth from an animal of terrifying size, an animal that does not seem to exist anymore. You have become a problem, a profound, world-shaking inconvenience. In the old world of superstition, you were easily explained as a dragon or a demon. But in this new world, which is trying to build a neat, tidy, rational system for how nature works, you are a square peg for a round hole. You don't fit. Your very existence suggests a world far older than their 6,000-year-old timeline. It suggests that species can vanish, that God's creation is not perfect and unchanging. It suggests a history of the earth that is violent, alien, and utterly indifferent to humanity. These are dangerous, heretical ideas. And so, the fight against you becomes a slaughter of a different kind. It is not a hunt with spears and arrows, but a campaign of intellectual dismissal. You are given a new, profoundly insulting name, lusus naturae, a freak or joke of nature. The theories they invent to avoid the truth are masterpieces of desperate denial. Perhaps your skeleton is not a skeleton at all, but a peculiar rock formation that, through some bizarre mineralogical coincidence, just happens to look exactly like a vertebral column. Perhaps your bones are the remains of an elephant, brought to Europe by Hannibal's army and somehow buried in a quarry in Germany. Perhaps they were formed by lightning striking the earth, or by a formative virtue in the soil that attempts to mimic the shape of living things. Any explanation, no matter how convoluted or absurd, is preferable to the simple, glaringly obvious truth that you were a real animal from a real world that existed long before them. The slaughter was the murder of your reality. For their new, fragile civilization of reason to be built, your ancient, inconvenient truth had to be declared a hoax, a prank played by the planet itself. And so we arrive at the cynical summary of this age of supposed enlightenment. What is the tragic legacy of your time in the medieval and early modern world? It is the profound irony that your reality was so magnificent and so terrible that it was easier for humanity to believe you were a fairy tale monster than to accept you as a fossil. And when their minds progressed beyond monsters, they still couldn't handle you. They chose to believe you were a geological mistake rather than a biological masterpiece. For centuries, your identity was trapped between two insulting extremes: a profitable superstition or an embarrassing scientific anomaly. Your strength was ground into powder to build their confidence, and your truth was dismissed to build their worldview. You were either a product to be sold or a problem to be ignored. It's hard to say which is worse. The age of denial, however, could not last. The evidence was simply too overwhelming. As the 19th century dawns, humanity's ability to rip open the earth reaches an industrial scale. They dig for canals, for railways, for coal. And in doing so, they find more of you, and more of your cousins, and more of the world you inhabited. They find so many of you that you can no longer be dismissed as a prank of nature. Science, dragged kicking and screaming by the sheer weight of your bones, is finally forced to admit that you are real. And so you are discovered. In the dusty halls of academia, you are finally given your proper name. You are no longer a dragon, no longer a lusus naturae. You are Allosaurus fragilis, the different, fragile lizard. You have been officially redefined. You are now a scientific specimen, a data point in the new, grand story of geologic time and evolution. A holotype fossil, locked away in a drawer, against which all subsequent discoveries of your kind will be measured. It sounds like a promotion. It sounds like respect. It is, in reality, just a new, more clinical form of ownership. This scientific enlightenment, however, does not usher in an age of careful, reverent study. It ushers in the Bone Wars. This was not a noble quest for knowledge. It was a vicious, petty, and spectacularly destructive feud between two rival paleontologists, Edward Cope and Othniel Marsh, two men whose colossal egos were matched only by the size of the skeletons they unearthed. You were not a magnificent creature to be studied. You were a prize to be won. You were the ammunition in their long, bitter war for fame and prestige. The stories from this period are a catalog of desecration. Your skeletons, which had rested peacefully for 150 million years, were dynamited from their rocky tombs with reckless abandon. Competing teams would often destroy fossils they couldn't carry, simply to prevent the other side from getting them. Your delicate bones were carelessly hacked from the ground, coated in plaster with all the finesse of a rushed construction job, and packed into crates like common pottery. They were shipped east on the newly built Transcontinental Railroad, your magnificent form reduced to a jumble of broken pieces, rattling around in a wooden box, all in the service of human vanity. You had survived the brutality of the Jurassic, only to be subjected to the savage incompetence of a 19th century academic rivalry. Once the dust from the Bone Wars settled, your image, now scientifically defined, was immediately seized by the public imagination and turned into a commodity. You became a monster in a pulp adventure novel, a terrifying beast for a lantern-jawed hero to conquer. Your silhouette, powerful and menacing, became the logo for an oil company, a final, breathtaking irony, as the fossil fuels they were drilling for were made from the very ecosystems you once dominated. And most humiliatingly of all, your form was crudely replicated in cheap, brightly colored plastic, destined to become a toy for a small human child to chew on. A 2-ton predator reduced to a plaything to be lost under a sofa. Your ultimate purpose in this new modern world, however, was to become a spectacle. After being sorted, studied, and cataloged, your bones were taken to a grand, echoing museum hall. There, under the harsh glare of artificial lights, a team of technicians painstakingly assembled you. They drilled holes through your fossilized vertebrae, threaded steel rods through your frame, and mounted you in what they considered to be a dramatic, lifelike pose, a frozen roar, a permanent, silent lunge towards an imaginary victim. Often, they got it wrong, mixing bones from different individuals, standing you too upright, your tail dragging on the ground like a pathetic lizard's. And here you stand, your final job title, an object of awe and a source of guilt. You are no longer a creature. You are an exhibit. Your new purpose is to inspire a sense of wonder in the crowds that shuffle past your pedestal. They are to gaze upon your size, your savage teeth, your alien form, and feel a brief, pleasant shiver of awe at the grandeur of a lost world. You are there to sell museum tickets, to provide an impressive backdrop for their photographs, to be the highlight of a school field trip for 1,000 bored children who would rather be looking at their phones. You are a living, breathing symbol of humanity's destructive past, a monument to their conquest of nature. Your purpose is to make them feel a tiny, fleeting, and entirely manageable pang of guilt about extinction, just before they exit through the gift shop to buy a plush version of you. You are now preserved. This is what they call it. And this preservation is the final, most exquisite form of collateral damage. It is a prison of kindness. From your perspective, what does this conservation feel like? It is an eternal, silent, temperature-controlled purgatory. In life, you are driven by heat and cold, by hunger and fear, by the sharp, metallic tang of blood, and the earthy scent of the floodplain after a storm. Your existence was a symphony of sensory input. Now, there is nothing. The air is dry, sterile, and unchanging, circulated by a humming machine that is your only companion in the long, dark hours after the museum closes. There is no wind, no rain, no sun. There is only the ceaseless, low hum of the building's life support. You are safe. Utterly and completely safe. Nothing can harm you now. The parasites that once burrowed into your flesh are gone. The rival predators that once tore at your hide are gone. The flash floods and brutal droughts are gone. All the dangers and discomforts of your real life have been eliminated. And with them, so has every last shred of your purpose. You are a predator with nothing to hunt. A fighter with nothing to struggle against, a king with no kingdom. You have been stripped of your function, your instincts neutered by the passage of 150 million years and the meticulous care of your keepers. They have saved your body, but only by ensuring your spirit, the very essence of what you were, is truly and irrevocably extinct. Your days are measured by the shuffling of feet and the flare of camera flashes. You endure the endless parade of your destroyer's descendants. They press their faces against the velvet rope, their soft, fleshy, primate features contorted in expressions of awe or boredom. They point at your teeth, the very instruments of your survival, and marvel at their size. They are completely, blissfully disconnected from the brutal reality those teeth represent. They see a monster from a storybook, not a desperate animal in a savage world. They are tourists viewing a ruin, taking photographs to prove they were there, but having no real concept of the life that was once lived within those walls of bone. The tour guides drone on, reciting a script of sanitized facts about your diet and your length, their voices echoing in the cavernous hall. You are a living museum exhibit, a spectacle for the entertainment and mild education of the species that now occupies every corner of your former world. They look at you, the fossilized ghost of a bygone era, and they feel a sense of wonder. But it is the wonder of a conqueror surveying his spoils. Their kindness is a cage, their reverence a form of taxidermy, and their conservation efforts are the last, most subtle act of domination. They are preserving the evidence of what they have overcome. At night, when the crowds are gone and the lights are dimmed, sometimes the scientists come for you. They bring their scanners and their lasers. They measure your bones, analyze your stress fractures, and build digital models of your musculature. They are trying to understand you, to reconstruct your life from its rocky remnants. But it is not a conversation. It is an interrogation of a corpse. They learn how you walked, how you bit, how you fell ill. They learn the intimate details of your physical existence. But they can never understand the rage, the hunger, the fear. They can catalog your injuries, but they cannot comprehend the pain. This kindness, this scientific curiosity, is simply a more sophisticated way of taking you apart. It is the prison of being known, but never understood. And so we arrive at the grand finale, the ultimate, most profound punchline of your modern existence. After millennia of being misinterpreted as a demon, ground into fraudulent medicine, dismissed as a geological prank, and blown up in the name of human ego, you are now cherished. After taking everything from you, your world, your life, your freedom, your very identity, humanity now spends millions of dollars and countless hours to keep you remain safe in a climate-controlled box. Why? The final irony is that they do it mostly for themselves. Your preservation is their penance. Your magnificent, silent form allows them to feel a sense of stewardship, a sense of regret for the destruction their species has wrought upon the planet. By saving you, a creature they never even met, they can feel a little bit better about the countless species they are actively driving to extinction today. Your role is no longer to be a predator or a king. Your final, eternal job is to be a symbol that helps humanity forgive itself. What then is the final, cynical truth of your long and tragic relationship with this troublesome ape? It is this: you are more important, more beloved, and infinitely more useful to them as a dead icon than you ever were as a living, breathing creature. As a living animal, you were just another competitor in a brutal world. But as a fossil, you are a trophy. You are the ultimate proof that they won. Your skeleton, standing silent in the museum hall, is a monument to their complete and total victory over the natural world. They love you because you are gone. They revere you because you are harmless. Your extinction is the silent, unstated foundation upon which their civilization is built, and your fossil is the beautiful, terrifying, and ultimately safe souvenir of the world they conquered. Your tragedy is their triumph, and your prison of kindness is the most popular exhibit in their museum of success. Let's linger for a moment on this final, perfect cage they have built for you. This museum. Consider the architecture itself. It is often grand, neoclassical, a temple of marble and stone built to mimic the temples of the very same ancient cultures that would have declared you a demon. It is a building designed to convey permanence, authority, and importance. Your presence within it is meant to lend a certain primal gravity to their institution. You are the anchor to deep time, the ultimate before to their triumphant after. You are not just an exhibit. You are a foundational pillar for their entire narrative of progress. Think of the sounds. In life, your world was one of guttural roars, the crunch of bone, the rustle of giant ferns, the hiss of the wind over a dry floodplain. Here, your world is one of hushed whispers, the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on polished floors, the distant, tinny voice of an audio guide, and the incessant, irritatingly cheerful beeping of a cash register in the gift shop down the hall. That is the new sound of your legacy, the sound of commerce. The sound of children begging their parents for a plastic replica of your skull, a foam version of your claws, a t-shirt with a cartoon of you roaring above the words, Tyrant Lizard King, a title that belongs to your more famous, and frankly more media-savvy, Cenozoic cousin. Even in obsolescence, you suffer the indignity of being confused with the competition. Let's break down your audience. This endless river of soft, fragile mammals that flows past your pedestal day after day. First, you have the scholars, the paleontologists, the people who profess to love you most. They look at you with a proprietary gleam in their eye. They argue in hushed, academic tones about the precise angulation of your pubis bone or the function of the fenestrine in your skull. To them, you are a puzzle, a data set, a career-making discovery. They love you not for what you were, but for what your bones can do for their reputation. You are the raw material for their dissertations, the celebrity object that helps them secure research grants. Their love is the love of a miner for a particularly rich seam of ore. Then come the families, the primary consumers of your spectacle. The parents, tired and desperate for an educational activity that will occupy their offspring for a few hours, try to read the plaque below your feet, mouthing the unfamiliar syllables of your name. They try to distill your magnificent, 150 million year history into a digestible lesson about the age of dinosaurs. They point you out to their children. Look, they say, a real dinosaur. And the children, for their part, either stare up in a moment of genuine, fleeting awe, or, more likely, are far more interested in whether the museum's cafeteria sells French fries. For a brief moment, you are the most incredible thing they have ever seen. An instant later, you are forgotten, replaced by the thought of a sugary drink. Your power to inspire wonder has the shelf life of a mayfly. Then you have the teenagers, herded through on school trips. They are the masters of performative indifference. They slouch past you, eyes glued to the small, glowing screens in their hands, documenting their visit with a selfie, in which you are merely an out-of-focus, monstrous background for their carefully curated expression of ironic detachment. They see you not as a creature of a lost world, but as content. You are something to be captured, filtered, and posted, your millions of years of brutal existence reduced to a momentary blip in their digital social feed, a thing to be liked and then scrolled past. It is perhaps the most modern, and therefore most soul-crushing, form of being ignored. And so you stand, a silent god in a temple of noise, a static giant in a world of fleeting attention, a biological masterpiece reduced to an educational backdrop. They took your life, and in exchange, gave you an eternal, meaningless celebrity. They honor you with a reverence that is wide but paper-thin, a fascination that is intense but momentary. They have done everything for you except the one thing that would matter. They have not left you alone. They dug you up from your peaceful, anonymous grave in the rock and put you on the stage, forever destined to play the part of the magnificent loser in the grand, self-congratulatory drama of human history. Let us rewind. Let's go back past the museum, past the powdered bone apothecaries, past the terrified shamans. Let's go back to the moment of your death, back to the mud. Your body, a magnificent 2-ton machine honed by millions of years of evolution, ceases to function. The complex electrical signals in your walnut-sized brain fizzle out. The great furnace of your metabolism goes cold. You are no longer an animal. You are meat. And for a time, that is all you are. Your scattered remains are subjected to the indignities of decomposition. Bacteria, the true, eternal rulers of this planet, begin their work. The remaining flesh liquefies. The tough ligaments and tendons that held your skeleton together dissolve. Your bones, picked clean and scattered by the juvenile thugs who killed you, lie exposed under the relentless Jurassic sun. This should have been the end. This is the end for 99.999% of all living things. A brief, violent life, followed by a swift and efficient recycling back into the ecosystem. No fuss, no legacy. Your constituent atoms return to the great, anonymous pool of planetary matter. But you, Al, were tragically, uniquely unlucky. You won the worst lottery in the history of the natural world. A few days after your unceremonious death, the sky darkens. The dry season breaks with a cataclysmic, world-drowning violence. A flash flood, a towering wall of brown water and mud and uprooted trees, thunders down the floodplain. It picks up your bones, your skull, your vertebrae, your massive leg bones, and carries them tumbling in its churning gut. They are buried, deep and fast, under a thick, suffocating blanket of sand, silt, and volcanic ash. This rapid, violent burial is your ticket to a miserable form of immortality. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. It just happened. A cosmic accident. Now, a new kind of existence begins. An existence measured in geological time. You are trapped. The weight of the sediment above you is immense, a pressure that would crush steel. The water, rich with dissolved minerals like silica and calcite, percolates slowly through your bones. And here, the great invasion begins. Molecule by molecule, your original organic matter is replaced. It is a process of petrification, of being turned to rock, that is so slow, so intimate it preserves every detail. The texture of the bone, the channels where blood vessels once flowed, the microscopic signature of the stress fractures you suffered in your pathetic life. You are not just being buried. You are being infiltrated and replaced by the planet itself. Your body is becoming a perfect, stone-cast replica of itself, a statue carved by geology and time. For millions of years, you lie in absolute darkness and silence, sinking deeper into the Earth's crust. Above you, the world changes beyond all recognition. Your entire ecosystem vanishes. The great sauropods, the armored stegosaurs, your entire family tree, all wiped from existence. Other, newer creatures rise and fall. Mammals, small and frightened in your time, grow larger, bolder. The planet freezes and thaws, freezes and thaws. And you are still there, a silent stone ghost waiting in the deep. Your preservation is a fluke of unimaginable proportions. Think of the billions, the trillions of dinosaurs who lived and died. They vanished completely. Their bodies were eaten, weathered to dust, scattered to the winds. They had the good sense to disappear properly. But not you. You were chosen by a blind, indifferent sequence of geological events to stick around. To become a message in a bottle. A message nobody was waiting for and everyone would misinterpret. Your immortality is not a gift. It's a curse. It is the sole reason you had to endure the second act of your tragedy. Your existence as a fossil is the prerequisite for all the humiliation that followed. If that flood had not come, if that sediment had not buried you so perfectly, your story would have ended in the mud. A clean, honest, biological end. Instead, you were preserved, a perfect specimen waiting for a new kind of predator, a predator with opposable thumbs and an insatiable need to categorize, commercialize, and humiliate everything it touches. Your fossilization wasn't a miracle. It was the setup for the longest, slowest, most elaborate joke in the history of life on Earth. And you were the punchline. Let's zoom back in on that medieval apothecary. Picture the scene. You are no longer a skeleton. You are inventory. You are a single, fossilized tooth sitting in a dusty wooden box filled with sawdust, waiting to be sold. The shop is a dark, cramped room, thick with the competing smells of dried herbs, sulfur, incense, and the faint, sweet odor of sickness that clings to the customers. The man behind the counter is not a scientist. He is a merchant of hope, a purveyor of placebos. He knows, on some level, that the dragon's tongue he is selling is just a strange stone. But he also knows that people will pay a fortune for it, because their fear of poison is greater than their skepticism. A wealthy merchant enters, his face pale with paranoia. He believes his business partners are trying to kill him. The apothecary, with the practiced solemnity of a stage magician, presents you. He holds you up to the flickering lamplight. Glossopetra, he says, using the fancy, vaguely scientific name. Found in the high mountains, where the last of the great serpents was slain by St. George. He explains, with complete confidence, that if you are dipped into a cup of wine, you will sweat and tremble if it is poisoned. The merchant, desperate, buys you for a bag of silver coins that could feed a family for a month. You, a tooth that once tore through the flesh of a Camptosaurus, are now a piece of primitive home security, an overpriced, ineffective poison detector. Your terrifying function has been replaced by a fraudulent one. Meanwhile, across town, your vertebrae are being ground to dust. In a back room, an apprentice sits with a heavy stone mortar and pestle, pulverizing one of your fossilized spinal processes. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump is the sound of your magnificent skeleton being turned into quack medicine. The resulting powder is packaged in small, wax paper envelopes. What does it cure? According to the sign outside, everything. It is mixed into poultices to treat gout. It is stirred into wine to combat melancholy. It is sprinkled on wounds to prevent infection. It is given to old men to restore their vigor, and to young women to ensure fertility. You, a sterile, 150 million-year-old rock, are being sold as a universal panacea. Your legacy as a creature of savage, deadly force has been completely inverted. You are now a wellness product. Now let us travel to the castle of the Duke who mounted your skull in his great hall. There you hang, high on the stone wall above a massive fireplace, your empty eye sockets gazing out over the scene below. You are a silent, eternal guest at a perpetual human drama. You watch generations of this noble family live and die. You watch them feast, their tables groaning with roasted pigs and flagons of ale, the very picture of gluttony and excess. You, who knew true hunger, watch them eat for sport. You watch their political theater. You see nervous envoys from rival lords, their eyes flicking up at you as they try to gauge the power of the man they are dealing with. The Duke, your owner, uses you constantly. He gestures to you when telling the story of his dragon-slaying ancestor, a lie that has been repeated so many times it has become truth. You are his ultimate power move, a piece of decor that screams, "My family is chosen by God." You watch him plot wars, arrange marriages for political gain, and sentence peasants to death for stealing bread. You, a creature who lived by a simple code of eat or be eaten, are now a silent witness to the invention of hypocrisy, treachery, and complex, calculated cruelty. Your presence there is a masterpiece of irony. You, an authentic relic of a real, savage world, are being used as the primary evidence for a completely fabricated history. You are a symbol of a lie. The strength and terror your form projects are being borrowed, co-opted by a soft, scheming primate to bolster his own fragile authority. He is a weak man, propped up by the bones of a strong creature. He will die of a fever or a bad tooth, a pathetic end for a ruler. His children will inherit the castle and the lie. And you will remain, a stone ghost hanging in the smoke-filled air, your silent roar a permanent commentary on the pathetic, self-aggrandizing fiction that these creatures call history. You have gone from being a participant in the brutal honesty of nature to being a prop in the dishonest theater of civilization. Let's go to that moment of your discovery, the great unearthing during the Bone Wars. Let's truly appreciate the context. The stage for this grand scientific debut is the American West in the late 19th century. This is not a land of quiet university campuses and sterile laboratories. This is a raw, violent, and chaotic landscape, still in the process of being brutally subjugated by the very civilization that now claims to be studying you with detached objectivity. The paleontological expeditions are not quiet affairs. They are rough, dusty, and often armed undertakings, moving through lands recently stolen from the native tribes who had their own names and stories for the strange bones in the earth. Stories that were, of course, promptly ignored. You are unearthed not by gentle brushes and meticulous hands, but by crews of roughnecks, railway workers, and hired thugs, men who are paid by the bone and have little concern for scientific integrity. The air rings not with intellectual discourse, but with the swing of pickaxes and the sharp crack of dynamite. Imagine that, after surviving 150 million years of continental drift, unimaginable pressures, and the slow, patient process of mineralization, your final resting place is shattered by an invention of Alfred Nobel. A stick of dynamite, a tool of pure, concussive force, is used to liberate you from the rock. Your delicate ribs, your intricate vertebrae, are blasted into fragments. It is a level of careless violence that would make your own predatory tactics seem like gentle surgery. And at the heart of it all are the two great rivals, Cope and Marsh. From their comfortable offices in the east, they waged their war by telegram and by proxy. You were just a bullet point in their dispatches. To them, you were not an animal. You were a weapon to be used against each other. They would receive a crate of your shattered bones, hastily plaster them back together, and rush to publish a description, often getting the anatomy completely wrong, just to be the first to slap their name onto a new species. They named dozens of dinosaurs based on a few fragments, creating a fog of taxonomic confusion that would take a century to unravel. You weren't being studied. You were being weaponized in a war of egos. Think of your journey from the Badlands of Wyoming to the train stations of Philadelphia or New Haven. You are packed into a rough-hewn wooden crate, labeled geological samples, and loaded onto a freight car. You, who once shook the earth with your tread, are now rattling along a steel track, surrounded by crates of machine parts and textiles. You are jostled and shaken, a passive piece of cargo in the great, clanking engine of their industrial revolution. You arrive at your destination in a cloud of coal smoke and steam, a creature from a world of clean air and savage grandeur now choking in the filthy, crowded heart of their new Gilded Age. You have been removed from your context, not just geologically, but aesthetically. You are an ancient, epic poem that has been transcribed onto a greasy factory ledger. This is not rescue. It is abduction. It is the final appropriation, where your very substance is claimed as raw material for the great human project of naming, owning, and ultimately diminishing everything it touches.